Hi, my friends. Welcome to Inside the Minds of Authors. I'm DC Gomez, your host, and also an indie author. I'm thrilled you're joining me today for another fun interview with a passionate author. We're going to kick off this show with an exciting reading, so let's get started.
The Missing Chapters, an epilogue to Think and Grow Rich by Paul Martinelli, read by Jose Antonio Gomez. Forgiveness. Chapter 2. The meaning of the word forgiveness is, in simple language, the action or process of letting go of anger or resentment. While the riches, wealth, fame, and influence you seek may give you something of which you have not previously been in possession of, only forgiveness can free you to truly enjoy what you seek. Forgiveness is perhaps the ultimate embodiment of the phrase addition by subtraction. Because of ignorance on the subject, the process of forgiveness is often mistaken for simply letting a grievance go, like a breath that vanishes in the wind. On the contrary, the beginning stage of forgiveness often starts with the act of leaning into the intensity of your anger. The desire for emotional expression is inborn and natural. Take away a toy from a baby, and you will see this to be true. The need to express or experience anger should not be submerged or eliminated. It should, in fact, be given ample release through forms of expression that enrich the soul. Anger, like all emotions, is subject to the law of polarity. There are positive ways to express anger, and there are negative ways. When you allow your anger to explode into a state of rage, losing control over your very demeanor, this is far from healthy or helpful in the process of ultimately releasing it. Instead of leading to healing and restoration, the outburst only causes harm to yourself and to others. This is one extreme of how anger can be expressed. In a similar manner, yet on the opposite end of the spectrum, when you suppress anger within yourself, and there is no acknowledgement or release of this emotion, you will spend much energy managing that bottled turmoil as you find small ways to express it through the planning and executing of passive-aggressive behavior upon others. Again, this prevents a healthy release that leads to healing. Though these are two apparent opposite examples of how anger is often expressed internally and externally, both lead to injury to oneself and to others and must only be characterized as negative. The true polarity of these negative expressions of anger is found in moving yourself to a neutral state in how that anger is expressed. Rather than exploding into rage or bottling this emotion, you can use it to muster from within a healthy state of fiery self-improvement. Your anger can be used as a catalyst to take a stand for yourself, recognizing that you deserve and are worthy of freedom from the inner and outer turmoil that will inevitably build in your life as this emotion remains within you. As you shift to this empowered state, you can then recognize that you do not need to allow yourself to be trodden upon like a figurative doormat, harboring much internal unrest. And in that same breath, you have the self-control within you to keep yourself from exploding in an over-expression of emotion that breaks down human connection and destroys any semblance of calm in your life. This is the true polarity of anger, and the productive manner in which it must be utilized in the process of forgiveness. It must be noted that the strength of your anger is in direct proportion to the amount of pain you feel inside. Often, men and women are not even able to fully feel their own pain. This is not a weakness, but rather a defense mechanism, put into place by divine design in order to help human beings cope with their trauma. It is a short-term safety mechanism, yet those who lack the self-awareness to realize this will eventually find that the very thing that helped them mitigate their initial pain will prevent them from ultimately letting it go. In my Turning Point retreat, I dedicate an entire session to this letting go process, which starts with the simple principle that a dream of the heart cannot grow in toxic soil. The soil of anger and resentment does not nurture and replenish, but rather suffocates and starves both the dream and the dreamer.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Inside the Minds of Authors. Today, I have an amazing and special treat for all of you guys. I have the amazing Mr. Paul with us. Hi, Paul. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful. How are you?
I am so excited and so overwhelmed to have you here on this show. We want to talk about your book, The Missing Chapters of Think and Grow Rich. I have bragged about you since I can possibly remember. You're probably one of those people, and all of my listeners, I can admit this, I'm being a fangirl today, but you have changed my life from a very unique perspective. You have given insight, you're authentic, you're always sharing, you're always so giving. So I wanted to start talking about it because I have Jose read the first piece of forgiveness because I think people need to hear about it.
Yeah.
Where did this book come from?
Yeah, well, it came from my life experience. It came from my heart. And, it came from just years of mentoring and coaching people who were in a position where I was stuck. And many people feel that they're stuck in the conditions and circumstance that they find themselves in. And I have found that for most people, you're not stuck there. You're stuck because of something that has you stuck where you are. And for me, it was in forgiveness. My first work in personal growth and development was not, goal setting like most people's was. Mine was really forgiveness work. I went to see a Lutheran minister who guided me through this process. And as I was, sharing my struggle of being stuck and trying to grow my business and being stuck in relationships he asked me, he said, you don't think it's possible for you to be stuck in one area and not stuck in every area? And he asked me a question. He said, who do you need to forgive? And I immediately got defensive. And at the same time, I immediately know what he meant. Immediately knew exactly what he meant. And, I've found that there's a program that we all run every single day in our life. It's called the 3 R's: resentment, resistance, revenge. So resentment is any negative emotion. Think about that. Any negative emotion towards any person, place, thing, condition, circumstance, thought, or idea, dead or alive. So you can have a resentment towards your goal, right? You could have a resentment towards a spouse. You could have a resentment towards the government. For years, I had a resentment towards the US government because of the unfair tax codes, or so I thought, right? And the problem with resentment is energy. And energy only does 2 things. It expresses itself and it expands. And it expresses itself and expands into resistance. And resistance is the withdrawal or withholding of any of our God-given skills, talents, abilities, and resources. And so we begin to play small. We marginalize ourselves. We diminish ourselves. We sabotage ourselves. And the whole purpose of that is to run the 3rd R, which is revenge, to cause the source of our resentment an awareness of the pain and hurt that we feel. And so I just found that so many people are stuck in resentment and need to learn how to forgive. We're all told that we should forgive. We intellectually understand that concept, but how do you forgive? Very few people teach a process of forgiveness, and that's what I share in the book.
A lot of people talk about it, and I think they get confused between forgiveness and forgetting. Every time they said, you should forgive, it's like, well, what happens if it happens? I was like, you're not forgetting. It's not a memory wipe. Like, we're not rebranding you, but they don't understand the 2 of them, and they tend to get lost in them. So when you brought this book, because it is The Missing Chapters of Think and Grow Rich, and if anybody's read the book, and they're probably like I did, I read it, I was like, oh, that was great. I put it aside. And it didn't click. It absolutely did not click. I was like, that is exciting. I think the only chapter I remember was a chapter on sex. And I was like, that's an interesting concept. And I moved on. I took your course. It was, I think, in Grow Rich, either 3. I think I've done a whole bunch of them.
Yeah.
And you said you need to do the chapter on persistent and you need to do it every day for 14 days. I was so mad at you. I was like, this man has lost his mind. Why would you make me do such a thing? But you had a concept behind it, and everything you do is specifically strategically done. There is no accident in everything. How did you develop this mindset? Because it's not natural. Let's be honest, Paul.
Yeah, I mean, living intentionally, it happens by intentionality, right? What I did is I kind of timelined my life and I looked at those different teachings, those different lessons, those different teachers and exercises that I did that made the big difference. And so, when you look at the book Think and Grow Rich, it's 13 principles of success and achievement. After 20 years of study, Napoleon Hill interviews 25,000 people. 500 of these people were like the wealthiest, most successful: Edison, Ford, Rockefeller, Alexander Graham Bell, the Wright brothers, right? And each one of those chapters is a principle of success and achievement. But I did believe that, I don't know that you can ever really be rich if you're full of resentment. I don't know if you could ever get rich just trying to accumulate wealth and not playing, the tithing game. If you're playing just to get and not to give, givers gain. And so that was the lesson on tithing in the book. And same with unconditional love as a chapter. If you really want to be rich, you need these 3 principles. And so as a student of the book, I knew these things were missing. That's why I wrote the epilogue. But I learned this just from my mentor, Patrick Hayes. He said, most people in life play checkers. Winners play chess. If you really want to get rich and live a rich life, you need to be strategic and you need to be intentional about every single thing you do. And so in all of my teachings and all of my programs, I'm very strategic, and I teach people how to think from strategy and how to think about leveraging every single thing they do.
A lot of people take that for granted. They go through life on autopilot. And you have mentioned that a lot. A lot of them just kind of go through the routine, get very frustrated when things happen to them. Very few people realize they're making that reality happen. Like right now, every decision, you creating that future. And you have talked a lot about that. What advice would you give somebody who finds themselves in the rat race and don't realize they're creating that?
Yeah, it's so true. I'm glad you shared that. Good catch, because nothing really happens to us. It happens through us, doesn't it? Right? It happens through us. We invite it in, or we make it welcome, for sure, right? We create the conditions and circumstances that make it welcome in our lives. It really is a mindset, being very strategic and thinking into this and thinking, I'm creating everything. If you look around your home right now, everything you see has been created twice. Everything starts in thought. Everything does. And, I'm a person of faith, so I believe that, we've been given dominion over all things. And that means we have been given dominion over our thoughts. That's the starting point of all creation. We are incredibly powerful creators. As a matter of fact, all you do is create. It's just, for most people, Emerson said, where our focus goes, our energy flows. And most people, we focus on that which we do not want. I know you coach people and mentor people, and the hardest thing to do is get somebody to tell you what they want. They can tell you what they don't want, but tell
Every
me
single day.
Yeah, they're masters at it, right?
And they're going to tell you why they can't get it and
Yeah.
how it's not going to happen. And every single horrible thing of what they did to try to do it. It's like every kid, it's like, it hurts when I do this. Like, well, don't do that. Like, stop it. And they're like, but it hurts. I'm like, oh my God, why are you doing this? You have one phrase that I tell all of my clients, and they look at me like I have grown another head. I was like, God is never going to give you an idea that He didn't give you the resources to do it. And they're going, that is impossible. I was like, are you serious? It is that wall of resistance. We fight so hard to be stuck. I was like, if you turn that halfway around to fight that hard for what you believe, where would you be?
So true, right? We fight for what we don't want, and then we're surprised when it shows up. We rent space. We give up territory for what we don't want. I always ask people to think of $1,000. Just think of $1,000 and what you could do with $1,000, and then think of $100,000 and what you could do with $100,000. And then I asked them, did it take you any more energy to think of $100,000 than it did 1,000? Not at all.
Never at all. Come on now. I know how to spend $1,000. I was like, oh yeah, we can spend it easily.
Easily. And we can spend 100 grand pretty easily too, right?
Oh, absolutely.
The world's energy and resources aren't depleted, but it's a fact. I shouldn't even say it's a fact. It's a law. It's a universal law. The entire universe would collapse upon itself if this were not true. And that is that the moment that you can consciously conceive of an idea, you are automatically connected, instantly and automatically connected with every single resource to bring that idea forward. Because, see, if you think about it, for you to have the idea resident in your conscious mind, you had to tap into the frequency of that idea. But at the frequency of, let's say, somebody is earning $50,000 a year and they come into an awareness that they want to earn $100,000 a year. Now they've tuned into this idea of $100,000 a year. Well, the income isn't the only thing that's resident at that frequency. Everything that's in harmony with that number. So it's kind of like when you tune into, a TV channel or a radio station, you don't just get the show you're watching, you get the program on the entire network. You get the news, you get the traffic, you get the weather report, you get the commentary, you get the music, you get all the commercials. So when you tune into an idea and you become aware of a dream, a possibility, you're not just aware of that. At another level, at an unconscious level, you actually are connected to all of those resources. The key is how do you then access those resources where that knowledge is, right? And you do that by staying at that frequency as long as you can and as often as you can. And that's why my signature statement is, hold your image, right? So once you lock in on this idea of $100,000, then fall in love with that idea. Love is the highest frequency in the universe, right? Fall in love with it. Dream about it. Journal about it. Live it. Henry David Thoreau said, if one advances confidently in the direction of their dream and just endeavors to live the life that they've imagined, they will, not may, they will meet with success at unexpected common hours. And so he's talking about this idea of us putting on the armor of a future state, right? Building an idea, a dream of an emerging future, going to that emerging future, actually clothing yourself in it, experiencing it, feeling it, and then coming back to present state and looking at your life and saying, what is not a match with that? And then getting rid of everything and everybody that doesn't match that. Now, people say, well, you're crazy. But I said, when you go on vacation, isn't that what you do? When you've got your empty suitcase on the bed, you're thinking about, okay, I'm going on this 7-day cruise. Okay, well, I'm going to go to the beach one day. So what do I want to wear at the beach? I'm going to go out to dinner one night. Well, what do I want to wear? What image do I? So we go to future states and come back, and then we go to our closet and we make choices of the best things that match that vibration. That's how you got to live your life.
Paul, people do not believe that. And I think Les Brown said it better. They believe in ghosts, but don't believe in them themselves. And I kind of look at my friend because I write fantasy.
Amen.
But you said something that was profound. Put yourself and fall in love. When I finished taking Think and Grow Rich with you, you said your dreams has to become an all-consuming idea. I can guarantee you the very first novel I wrote became an all-consuming idea. Like, what are you going to give up to do this? Yeah, I didn't go out. I didn't have friends. I didn't eat. People like, what are you doing? It's like, I'm writing. I had a friend who's like, I thought you were lying to me. It was like, who comes up with that lie? They're like, yeah, they're like, it's kind of cheesy at first. I was like, and then you had a book. I worked harder than I can imagine for 3 months and it didn't feel like work. And then this book came out. You're like, oh, what just happened? Where did this book come from? It is that power of putting ourselves there. You have this book that is small and powerful. You're looking at a mighty document that you can read on the train, in passing, on a commute, easy to digest. But the principles are easy to say, they're difficult to apply, Paul. Let's be honest. Like unconditional love, people don't love themselves and you want them to love unconditionally. So the golden rule, love others like you will love yourself. I tell everybody, I want you to love me a little more because I see how you love yourself. Just be a little nicer to me. When you put these 3 things together, because you have seen it in your life, what can people expect? Let's be honest, because they don't believe it. And I know your story, and most people are going to be like, what? They don't believe that these things can change a life.
Yeah, well, what would happen in your life if you were able to clear the energy of every resentful happening, every resentful thought, every resentful emotion, every resentful relationship? What happens if you were to just release those people and those things to their highest good and you to yours and go on with your good work? What would happen if you took on God as a partner and every time you made money, you gave 10% to God? What would happen in your life if you saw yourself as a channel through which God expressed himself, right? That your job was to serve as a channel through which God would express the good that he has for other people. What if God were to use you and you allowed yourself to be used that way with the money that you had? And you really lived that, because the more you give, the more is given to you to give. To whom much is trusted, much is given. And so the more you play your role as a center of distribution, Trailward said that we are to be channels of distribution for the infinite. So that's what tithing really is. What would happen in your life if you could just love yourself first, unconditionally? What happens if you would take this voice of, Eric Hoffer wrote the book True Believers, and he said, no matter what our achievements may be, we think well of ourselves only in rare moments. That we have within us a judge that keeps a book of our shortcomings and our transgressions, that we need other people to convince us that we're not as bad as we think we are. What would happen in your life if you didn't keep score against yourself? If you just weren't so damn hard on yourself? If you just were gentle and kind to yourself? And then what would happen if you compounded these three things, right? What would happen if you were releasing people who you had negative energy towards, releasing them to their highest good? What happens if you were serving your role as a channel of distribution for the infinite? And what happened if you just really loved yourself, valued yourself, saw yourself as a person of increase? What would happen to your world? I think your world would change.
That energy radiates. It's absolutely contagious because we all seen it. You've seen happy people,
Yep.
and we all want to be attracted to them. It's like, and unfortunately, the people who tend to be attracted to them is the same ones who want to shut them down. You're like, okay, what just happened?
Yeah.
You have one saying that shocked me, and I can guarantee you, I spent about a couple of weeks upset about it because you said it is a sin for you to be poor. I was like, say what? And like you said, like, who would you help if you had $1 million? And I was like, okay, so I had my list and I'm all proud of myself. And then you went, there's all these people that are not being helped because of you. And I swear to God, Paul, I cry. I was like, I went to work. I was like, I think he's just crushed my spirit. I don't even know what to say about this.
Yeah.
But it changed the way I saw money.
But it's a big idea because it rattles everybody's cages. I remember the first time I said it, it wasn't a planned statement. I was in a seminar teaching the science of getting rich, and I said it, and you could have heard a pin drop. I mean, there was an audible gasp from the audience. It's like, like, whoa, what did he just say? But if you think about it, money is an idea that we all agree on. We agree on the value of money. If I hold $100, you know what $100 is worth. We all have agreed on it. So money is just an idea. That idea is exchanged for service and value. That's the only time money shows up, is when there is an exchange for service or value. And so if you're poor, but capable of doing more, you're capable of doing more, and yet you're not providing service. Well, what did Jesus do to the fig tree that didn't produce fruit?
Ooh, did you have to go there? Really? Are we going to kill it already? Really?
Yeah. I mean, people say, well, he cursed it. No, he didn't curse it. He killed it. He killed it. That's what he did to it. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's a sin to be poor. If you've been given resource and you're not developing your resource. Adrian Rogers said that humility, or false humility, is a form of rebellion. If you're going to play the game of, it's really not me, or I'm not that good, well, then get better. Then why aren't you that good? Then you should get better. It's not arrogance. And if you're good, get great and get better every single day. And you should be seeking that. It's not arrogance, it's awareness.
So the reason I brought it up is because we're talking about self-love. Those two things are tied well with each other, and most people don't think about it because they think, oh, I love myself, yet they will never treat themselves like they treat others. They will never buy anything for themselves because they don't feel like they deserve. So their love is diminished by their money, and they keep that separate. And you're going, you can't possibly, you truly love yourself, yet you find luxury too much for you. You don't believe you deserve this. So those are all those subconscious thoughts that you're going, if you really believe you were that good and you love yourself, you would treat yourself like you treat those people in your life. So I seen it. And every time I talk to my clients, it breaks my heart because the first thing we want to talk about everything but money. Money's bad. I was like, but you will buy $100 worth of nothing playing cards for your baby, yet you won't buy yourself a movie tickets just because you want to go play?
Right.
Really? What is this? So you talked about self-love, and self-love is tied to the money. Do you believe you deserve to be happy? And sometimes they can't say yes to that.
Isn't that sad, huh?
We were taught to believe these things. The one thing that we still holding on from our Puritan progressive the United States is that belief that in order to be a good person, you have to be poor, you have to be humble, you have to be these things. And yet, you said it. How many people are we not starving because of this belief?
Yeah. I forget who said it. He said that it's a sad thing when you see a child afraid of the dark. And it's a sadder thing when you see an adult afraid of the light. Isn't that true?
Amen. Amen.
So true. Yeah.
We're holding on to ideas that we think are serving us and yet are not doing anything. So, this book, because it was three things that touched my heart so hard. So, I have three devotionals and they're very focused on what you were talking about. Forgiveness, which I didn't realize how hard it is to forgive until you put it into perspective. I was like, you cannot let go, you cannot move on if you're still carrying this chain with you of all the people that have done you wrong. And the moment you see it, you see other people and how they're holding on to this anchor and this, vengeance and all these things you talked about. You're going, if you let go of that energy, you might be able to, I don't know, move on with your life and do something with your life.
Yeah.
When you decided to write the book, because I know you have been putting off writing a book for a while. Why? Why did you hold on to writing this book for so long?
Well, I think, I didn't want to do a book on goal setting because I think there's great books on goal setting. I didn't want to do a book on mindset because I think there's great books on mindset. There's greater works than mine. If I was going to write something, I wanted to write something that was truly authentic, that was truly mine, that was my story, and that I had truly walked, like I had walked in my life, you know? And so I felt that because I see so many people trapped in poverty consciousness, and I see so many people trapped in resentment and resistance, and I see so many people beat themselves up, I thought it was time for me to kind of lend my voice. It's a work that nobody else has done. Like I said, I mean, I've read Think and Grow Rich as you have, and Psycho-Cybernetics by Maxwell Maltz, and Science of Getting Rich by Wallace D. Wattles. And I teach all this stuff and I love it. But for me to then go write, all I would be doing would be lending my voice to that which others have already said. This was something that was uniquely mine and that I had walked authentically, right? I share in the book. I mean, I've gotten so many letters from people who've read the book, and the first chapter of the book is not for the faint of heart. I grew up in a house of terror. The home of my childhood was not a safe place emotionally, physically, verbally, spiritually. It was a really abusive home, and if you've ever been in an abusive home, you know what it's like. And so to be able to move into forgiveness and walk that, and walk it for decades, I felt qualified to write the book.
You have a story of transformation that is mind blowing because you only hear about it and you're going, they went from poor to riches and it's amazing. But yet the person's not the same. And I think that's the part about this book and the part about your mission, because it is a mission and a ministry, is you have remained true to who you are. You have not gone off into becoming, I'm going to live in a palace and never talk to people yet. So the fact that you're here with us and you said, sure, how can I serve? That's like the first thing out of your mouth. How can I serve? You still extremely that person who's seen what it's like to be down, what understanding. And you're not just talking about it, you're pulling people up. It's like, and some of us you have to drag, let's be honest. Some of us a little bit more stuck than others. So when you put this book together for all of our listeners, who I'm hoping you guys can go and pick up the book because it's amazing. It is a story of transformation from a very real perspective, and you're still thinking of the reader. So who did you had in mind? Because we talked a lot about being stuck.
Kind of had myself because I wanted to kind of memorialize my journey, but I had the collective. These three topics are universal. I've traveled to China. I've traveled to Japan. So I've been to Asia. I've been all over Europe, all over South America. I've traveled the world. I've been blessed as a speaker. I've been one of those guys that have been able to really go on the world platform. I've seen these three principles stumble people everywhere in every walk of life. I've seen really wealthy people poor in spirit because they didn't learn how to forgive. Really rich, but broke inside, you know? And I've seen people, just from every walk of life, from every faith. So I didn't have like an avatar per se, but so it was really for the collective. It was for the universal, because these really are universal principles.
You talked a lot about universal laws, and I think a lot of our listeners kind of going, is it real? Because sometimes it feels very new wave. And I was like, no, they've been around forever. So some of the things you talk about, you always talked about touching to the mind of the creator. For our listeners who are writers, the closest thing you can ever get to God is creation, and writing is one download directly. There's nothing you can do about it. You're as close as you can get. So to have you put the words into the page and translate it in a way that makes sense to everybody was incredible. How long did it take you to put this book together?
I had taught it for years. So I taught a lesson on forgiveness for years. I had taught a lesson on tithing for years. And I had taught on unconditional love. But I had never filtered them through the filter of kind of personal growth journey, right? I taught them as singular principles, not tied together for a decision for your life, right? It's challenging the reader to make a decision, to be forgiving, to be giving, and to be loving, right? I think I probably wrote it in 3 months. And then I was just, we have Huluk, and I had Huluk. I had Mike Kim, who just, I love. I shared the concept of the book with Mike. And Mike said, would you let me just kind of ghostwrite it for you? And I said, sure. So I wrote the lessons. And then when I got the manuscript back from Mike, he wrote it in Napoleon Hill's voice. That's what's so cool about it, was because I wanted to make it the 3 Missing Chapters, Think and Grow Rich. And when he gave it to me, he took my lessons and wrote it in the same style as Napoleon Hill. So if you read Think and Grow Rich, this just mirrors that. He's so beautifully done. And he did that. I think he probably did that in 90 days too. So the whole thing came to, I know. So, yeah. But like you said, you get downloaded. I think a real author doesn't write. I think they transcribe.
Take dictations. I don't care what anybody says. Everybody says, did you write it? I was like, in theory, I typed it. I was present in the moment. But if you asked me out of my books, hey, pick a quote, I was like, oh God, let me go find a book. But like, really? I was like, because you just literally are taking dictations.
Yeah.
90 days is very in tune with it.
Yeah, you're right.
So Paul, I could talk to you all day because you're absolutely fabulous and one of my favorite mentors ever. So, but before we go, where can we get the book? Where can we learn more about you? Where can our listeners find you?
Thank you so much. So the book is right on Amazon.com. It's the 3 Missing Chapters, an epilogue to Think and Grow Rich. And my website is just paulmartinelli.net. And that's where you connect. Got a great YouTube channel where I teach the book for free, Think and Grow Rich for free. I do free teachings on the Empowered Living Facebook page. It's a community of about 2.3 million people every Saturday. I've given Think and Grow Rich away as a business tool for people. I've taught probably 500,000 people the course in Think and Grow Rich. And I teach it once a year for free. I think you said version number 3, PAGR.
I think I've done it 4 times. Let me just admit it.
Yeah, every time I teach it from a different perspective. The last time I taught it, and is on YouTube, is from an entrepreneur's perspective. If you were an entrepreneur, what do these lessons mean for you as an entrepreneur? Yeah.
It's absolutely fabulous. So we're going to run and change to our lightning round.
Okay.
So don't think too much about this. Easy peasy. Let's see how you do. Are you ready?
Yes.
Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Okay. Spicy or sweet?
Sweet.
Okay. Beach or lake?
Beach.
Scary movie or comedy?
Oh, comedy.
So here's a little different. Let's see how you do with this one. If your life had a theme song, what would it be?
Rocky.
Really? I love it. Mr. Paul, it has been such an honor and has the pleasure to have you. Do you have any closing remarks for us?
I would just say that we are all gifted with infinite potential. And it's a gift given to us from the infinite. It's your birthright. We were all made in the image of God. God is the creator. And therefore you are creative. And all you do every single day is create. You might as well begin to create what you want.
Okay, listeners, if that wasn't powerful and motivating you to get up, live your dreams, follow your dreams, and do it amazingly. I don't know what else it is. Mr. Paul, thank you for being with us. Thank you for honoring us today. And honestly serving this community of amazing listeners. To everybody, I hope you are motivated and fire up. I will see you guys again next Friday for another awesome author. Remember, if you're interested in supporting us, make sure you check out my Patreon account, which is patreon.com/author DC Gomez. And I'll see you guys next week. Thank you, everyone.
Be well.